Yo, what's up, baby? This is Bert Watson, and you're listening to Radio MMA, because this is what they do and why they do it, baby, all night long, because they rolling hard, fast, and on the money.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the radio show. Let's welcome in the Vice President of Regulatory Affairs, Mr. Marc Ratner. How's it going, man?
Very, very good. I'm delighted to talk with you. So let's go.
Okay, man. Recently, I read a quote from you saying MMA in New York was so close you could taste it. Where does everything stand now, and where's your confidence level?
Well, I'm always cautiously optimistic. We're already meeting about it. We can't do much until January when the legislature reopens, but we're starting to work on some grassroots. We have the votes there. I really believe if it got to the floor, excuse me, you need 100 votes, or you need 76 votes, and we have 100. So that tells you a lot.
Sure.
We passed the Senate 47-14.
Wow.
So that's how close we are. It's politics either at its best or at its worst.
Okay, Mark. Now, I had a question about these IVs. Obviously, the commissions...
Excuse me. Okay.
Yeah. The commissions have passed that you will no longer be able to use IVs following your weight cut, correct?
Well, not the commissions. That is a WADA and USADA. That's part of their rules and their laws.
Okay.
And some commissions have passed it, but that's where it comes from.
Okay, so that's coming into effect because of the testing that the UFC is doing now, correct?
It's coming in on a couple different fronts. It's a health and safety matter, number one.
Okay.
Some of the fighters are cutting so much weight that they need an IV,
right,
which leads you to believe maybe they're fighting at the wrong weight. But it's been a process of education. It'll come into play in October. So we're talking to fighters, we're educating them, and it's something that some whether it's track and field or bike racing or other sports, the IVs were masking some of the drugs they were giving them. So it's just it is something that's been going on, and we're certainly not saying that's what's happening in combat sports, but that is going to be the new law.
Okay, Mark. In baseball, Pete Rose was suspended for life for betting on the game of baseball. Is there any rules in mixed martial arts about the MMA fighters betting on their own fights or other fights in the UFC?
There is no law. This has come up in my term as the director of the boxing. You certainly don't want anybody betting on their opponent, but there's no legality about a fighter or his camp betting on himself. The only thing that I would ever say is don't wear your camp gear into the race book, but there is no regulation that says you cannot do it.
Okay, that's very interesting. Now, a month ago, Bellator had this Kimbo Slice versus Ken Shamrock fight, and everyone on Twitter, from fans to fighters, were claiming the fix was in. Do you think fights get fixed in MMA?
No, I think that's a very, very terrible word to use. And I watched the fight. One guy won, the other guy lost. That's all I'd say. So I do not think that.
We have a Twitter question here, and this is from Al Cavero, and it says, Mr. Ratner, is there a way to petition the commission for more training and regulation for judges and referees?
The Nevada Commission is going to hold more seminars, and I believe Herb Dean and John McCarthy will be running them. I think they're going to do one in the fall coming up, maybe September or October. There's got to be more of those kind of seminars, more judging clinics, and it's starting. It needs to be done, and I think you'll see more commissions doing that.
Okay, in the last 5 to 10 years, have you seen an improvement in the judging and refereeing in the sport?
I think maybe not in the last 5 years. In the last couple of years, yes. I think you're seeing the association of, I call it the Association of Combat Commissions, where all the commissions get together. They're having seminars. They had one a couple weeks ago on Saturday in San Diego. So I think it's more consistent. Will there ever be a time when it's perfect? I don't believe so. Boxing's 150 years old and or more, and they still have controversial decisions. What's tough in a 3-round sport, if you miss one round, it changes who wins or loses a fight. So there will be controversies. You try to learn from them. You try to show film, and if a guy is consistently wrong, then the commission shouldn't use him.
Okay, Mark, I have some friends that I watch the fights with, and every time they're watching the fights, they're complaining about the 10-point must system. Tell me why it works in MMA.
Why it works in combat sports, in boxing or MMA, I don't know what else can be done. There's some questions about the half-point system. I have found some commissions can add 10s and 9s, and I would assume that 8.5 and 9.5 would be tough. I think when you make the judging more consistent as best you can, I think the 10-point must system can work, but there are always going to be some questions. Like I said, in the 3-round fight, one little slip-up can change who wins or loses a fight.
Okay, Mark, this is my last question. Do you think the increased suspension times will be enough to scare fighters away from the drugs?
I think that it'll be a major deterrent. And anytime you're talking 2 years to 3 years out of your career, and that means if it happens in Nevada, you can't fight anywhere else.
Right.
And if it happens anywhere in America, I mean, there's a complete list where no commission will let you fight. And you know, you take 2 to 3 years out of a guy's career, it's really tough. Their careers don't last that long. So I would think that's a major deterrent. I think that I don't think there's as much as a speculation of guys using PEDs maybe at one time, but I believe the education component is so important, and you know, our job is we don't want to catch people. We want to educate them to say stop doing it. Just fight naturally and win or lose on your own.
Well, thanks very much for the time, man. I appreciate it, and we'll talk again soon.
My pleasure. Thanks.